Kathy next to me. The voting meeting of the Carlynton School Board for August 2nd, 2012 is called to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We don't have a pledger with us, but I'm going to ask Mr. Michael Cozy, our AP Calculus teacher, to step up and new basketball coach, and if you'd lead us, Mr. Cozy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The secretary will call the roll.
Director Apple.
Here.
Director Shell. Present. Director Tesoro.
She is not going to be attending today.
Director Hugan. Here. Director Sharifah.
She also called to say she wouldn't be making it.
Director Walkovia.
Here.
Director Shriver.
He also indicated he would not be here today.
Director Wilson.
Here.
Director Russo.
Here. We'll start first with public comment on any agenda item. I did not see a list. I don't know if anyone was signed in to speak on anything that's on the agenda, but seeing nobody rise to address the board, we'll move on. First thing we'll do is approve the minutes from the July 19th, 2012 meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve such minutes?
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I just had one correction under committee reports, talking about the FanCon moratorium. The date should be October 1st, not August 1st. I might have just taken.
Let's see
I
here.
didn't like this one.
I'm sorry, Myra, again, what page?
It would be 7351
And
under committee reports, PSBA legislative. Right before the last sentence, it says August 1, that should be October 1.
to be October 1. All right, I'll entertain, are you making a motion to modify the minutes? There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, we will all vote on the motion to amend. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. We have an amended motion. Is there any further discussion? There being none, we will vote on the amended motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. Moving on to reports, a report that we had an executive session prior to this meeting. We discussed personnel, contract issues, and we discussed some litigation?
Yes.
Litigation as well. Was that everything?
The,
That was everything. Okay. With that, I'll turn to our superintendent, Mr. Pfeiffer, for the administrator's reports. Mr. Pfeiffer.
Thank you, Mr. Russos. I'm happy to report for the last couple of weeks I've been here, I've been able to sit down and meet with individual board members, go through some student data and test performance data, and be able to begin to set goals for the district for the upcoming school year. I've also met with faculty members to look at ways we can improve what we're doing here and take every step we can to make this a premier district of Western Pennsylvania. Along those lines, we're looking at our PSSA data. The district itself made AYP. We showed strong gains with the 7th grade and the 8th grade, and are very proud about the effort our teachers and our building administrators put forth. Both Crafton and Carnegie Elementary did very well in the PSSAs as well. We struggled a little bit in the 11th grade, but we're going back to review that data to make sure that data is accurate. Though we made School Improvement 1 at the high school level, we're going to go back and check that data and make sure things are accurate. We have some concerns, and I have some concerns as the district administrator that everything lines up the way it's supposed to line up with data, and that things are coded properly with the data. So we're going to take a look at that. We also received word that the Keystone exams are going to be live for this year for the juniors. The Keystone exams, as you know or may not know, but the Keystone exams were approved by the Commonwealth as graduation requirements and also measures for AYP at the secondary level. This year, the juniors will be taking the Keystone exams. Students who are enrolled in the Keystone exam courses, and those exams are Algebra 1, Biology, and English Literature. If 11th graders are currently enrolled in any of those classes, they'll take the exams in the spring. If the 11th graders have already had those classes, which I believe there will be a good amount that have already had them, they will take the Keystones in December. So we are putting things in place to be able to help prepare the students to take those exams. For 11th grade for next year, there will be no PSSA. It'll be the Keystone in math and English, which will count for AYP. We also have to take biology in the Keystone to meet the No Child Left Behind requirements. So those exams are coming up are going to impact our district in terms of professional development, how we're going to use data, and how we're going to work with students. That information came to us that the Keystones were going to be operative this year through a July 23rd webinar, which was also repeated on July 30th. Other than that, we continue to get ready for the fall. People are coming back from vacation, getting the buildings ready. Camp AIM had a nice run here. The kids, they do an impressive job with Camp AIM with working with those students. The kids, I believe, got a lot out of the camp, and I believe the counselors and the supervisors also did, working with that population. We thank them for working with us as a district in the building. The marching band is back, and pretty soon we'll be seeing our sports teams come back to put on the green and the gold to be ready for what's going to be an exciting new year. So I look forward to working with the board and with the faculty and the community as we, and I know we will, meet these challenges and move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would take us then through the principal's reports, or I don't know if you have any other reports here for the director.
Well, Mrs. Hudson will be doing the principal reports this evening.
Sure. At Carnegie, our wall looks great. It's all graded, and I know that they're planning on planting seed, but the fence is going to stay up though until we do have grass. So hopefully to sustain the grass. And the building looks wonderful. It's all clean, getting ready to go. Teachers are slowly coming back, and we are just watching our enrollment. We're really excited about our numbers, actually, that we do have, but we are continuing to encourage people to make sure we get registered for kindergarten and so on if any new students are coming in. So exciting times.
Thank you.
Let me just ask a question. Speaking of enrollment, are there any issues concerning enrollment as far as the numbers? I thought I recalled seeing something as far as where we want to cap kindergarten.
We had looked at, I had met with the elementary principals, and we were looking at a number of perhaps 22. We need to discuss when we get to certain numbers at the kindergarten where we want to keep the numbers per class load, because research has shown with the younger kids that have a smaller number of the kids benefit with that more one-to-one instruction teacher-student ratio. I don't believe there's a set number right now in our policy. That's something I think we would want to take a look at. Ballpark, perhaps 22 students might be a number to examine. I certainly wouldn't want to go above 25 in a kindergarten class just because of the needs of the student. But that was something.
Thank you.
I'd also like to welcome back Dr. Sassini, who looks rested from his vacation. Dr. Sassini, do you have anything to add for the high school?
I was rested until I walked in the building. Hit the ground running this morning. Just two things very, very briefly. I just wanted to note that we were recently informed that one of our students at the junior senior high school, Nicole Stengel, was honored recently during the Celebration of Education Awards dinner that was hosted by the ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. She won a Family Life Award for her 500-word essay, What My Family Means to Me, as well as a $50 U.S. savings bond. And Nicole will be a freshman in 9th grade next year, and had a chance to read some of the essay. It was just very, very touching. She has a very, very nice family, and it was extremely well written.
Could I ask a question concerning that? Would that be something that we might be putting in the next newsletter
In Carlynton?
in Carlynton? Would it be a consideration?
The next issue, the current issue, will be
The next
coming
time it's
out.
available to put something.
It's, that deadline's gone, but
That's
it,
okay.
okay, so it'll
Yeah.
be the very next one, yes.
I think if that's the award-winning essay, I think we should recognize it.
Wonderful idea.
And sometimes we've had them come and read their essay here at the board meeting as a way to recognize them, and they can lead us in the flag.
Well, and I can advocate perhaps we could put that link or put a recognition on our website.
I like that. So,
The only other thing I had was just a reminder that our annual orientation for all new students in grades 7 through 12 will be a little less than 2 weeks from now, Wednesday, 15th of August, here at the junior senior high school. We will have 2 sessions, one at 11 a.m. and then one at 7 p.m. so that we can accommodate as many people, as many varied schedules as we can. At that point, the students will have their schedules for the coming school year and can walk through, we'll have an orientation in the auditorium, and then they'll have a chance to walk through their schedules, walk through the building, try out their lockers, because that's usually one of the areas of anxiety when they start.
That's right.
It really is important, and hopefully get everything off to a little better start, take away some of the anxiety that first day, so they know where to go.
Can I ask you a question? Are you having the peers take them on the tours this year?
We always have students, volunteers.
So that-
The cheerleading squad has been up here the last few years in their uniforms. Weather permitting, sometimes it gets rather warm, but we have some other student volunteers as well, National Honor Society, student leadership groups, etc.
Do the children get a map of the floor plan?
We do give them a map. When we start them upstairs, because most of their homerooms are all up here on the second floor, and their lockers are very close by, so once they kind of get that home base, they're usually pretty good, but they do have maps both upstairs and downstairs.
Thank you.
And you mentioned 7 through 12. I'm assuming that the vast majority of these young people are going to 7th grade. You have a few
Yes,
maybe that
very-
moved into the district.
Very much so. But we also do have, last year we had new students all the way through 12th grade, several in each grade. So thus far I've seen the same in the new student enrollments. So we want to welcome them as well, so they get an orientation to the building as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question. How is the registration out at Parkway West?
We're up this year. I want to say we're.
You don't have to give me an exact
Yeah, I
number,
have the
but you say.
exact number. I would say we're probably in the neighborhood of 50, which is probably 10 more, 12 more than we had last year. Last year was one of our lower enrollments. This year's up a little more. So a lot of the 10th graders, the students going to 10th grade are taking advantage of the opportunities that Parkway provides and the really great programs they have out there.
Thank you.
Could I ask, and you may not have an answer, but I want to ask a definitive question. Do you know if anybody's enrolled in the robotics and machining class?
I can check that out.
I just thought it might have recalled, because I know the numbers were very low when we approved that out at Parkway. There were only 6 students, and we were hoping to see enrollment increase over the summer.
I haven't gotten any questions. That was a program that did generate a lot of discussion amongst the students.
Good.
I don't know how many of our students had signed up.
Now, if next time, for the next meeting, just let me know, because we have not been meeting. I think our last meeting was in June. I know that there is a meeting mid-month to discuss the ACE school. Do we have any students in that program at all?
Last year we had a number.
Okay.
Most of them were seniors.
Okay.
So we might maybe have 2 to start the year. I might have to make sure on that, but we're trying to keep close tabs on that.
Because
obviously there's
the
additional
expense,
fee.
the expense is a big issue, and I know that what they did was they were able to reduce the enrollment cost by shifting the cost to the more populated Parkway Technical Center. So they were able to shift some of the cost there. I think they reduced the cost maybe by 25%. And don't hold me to these numbers, but it was somewhat significant in the ACE program, in the ACE school versus the Parkway school, and it went up slightly there. But it's a matter of juggling, the numbers between the 2 schools to try to bring down the cost for ACE. Thank you.
I see Director of Pupil Services and our business managers in here, so I assume that's it for our administrative report?
Yes, that's correct.
We'll move then on to business before the board. Under miscellaneous, you'll see a motion to approve conference and field trips. I'll entertain a motion to approve the list as presented.
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I just have a question. It just seems early. I see it. Is that a date of 8/7 when the actual fall fantasy parade occurs?
Next week.
Next week already?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, that's all. I was just informative.
Any other discussion?
And Mr. Pfeiffer would talk a little bit about the purchase of on-hand school. Oops, sorry, we're not there yet.
We're not there.
Easy,
yet.
Cone Girl.
I'm sorry. I was like, wait, that's not there. That's it.
Any other discussion on the miscellaneous motion?
Sorry.
That's okay. No other discussion, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, the motion carries. Under Finance, you'll see 4 items. The first is approval of the June 12 cafeteria monthly operating report as submitted by Airmark. Number 2, the purchase of on-hand schools instructional management software to improve student achievement. Number 3, change orders to the Carnegie Elementary front area wallway. And number 4, the renewal process and application for the Grable Foundation grant for Carnegie Tower's Power of Hours as submitted. Do I have a motion for those 4 items? So, has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the items? Identify the item by its number.
Number 3, first item, the excavated stockpile material. Was that moved on our site or was that hauled off-site?
That was hauled. It's no longer down at Carnegie. The original agreement with Metzinger was they were going to use to put it on our hillside to reinforce it.
So it's on our hillside?
Right.
Okay.
I had seen I thought I saw some trucks come to the high school to dump. Is that where it's being? When you say the hillside, you mean here at the high school?
Right.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion? Any of the other items?
Item 2, Mr. Pfeiffer talked a little bit about.
On-hand schools, instructional math and so forth.
And then item 4, if Ms. Hudson can talk a little bit about the, just a reminder of what the
Very-
Carnegie Tower is.
Sure, very nice. You can start, Mr. Pfeiffer, on that.
Sure. On-hand schools, when we look at some of the needs of the district and look to implement programs that'll benefit K through 12 to improve our academics, to improve our professional development, to help us use data better, to help us work with assessment better so we can better measure how students are performing, where students' abilities are, where their competency needs are, what anchor or what standard do they need additional instruction in so we can provide intervention in a timely manner. On-hand schools is a program that already works with software that we have, which is ProSoft or the PIM system. So it's compatible with the programs we already have. And they'll help not only to break down student performance data on the PSSAs, but they'll help us in our goal to revise the curriculum because they come with curriculum mapping software. They will help us to help prepare kids for the Keystones because there's a Keystone exam. They're developing a sample test item bank, which the PSSA, there already is such an item bank, but the Keystones are so new, and again, that they're going to be giving them this year, we're going to need help to properly prepare the students, in this case the juniors, to be able to take that this year and next year. On-hand schools comes with professional development for our building administrators and our faculty. It'll help us set up long-term, data-driven, objective-based goals so that professional development in this district is not a once-and-done sporadic deal, that it's aligned K through 12 on what our ultimate objective is, which is improving individual student performance, preparing students for the 21st century so they can be successful in college and career. That's from discussions with board members, with faculty, and with administrators, is where I think we need to go to continue to move forward in this district. Once on-hand schools and we do the training, we do the implementation of the program, then it sustains itself. So it's not a program that would come in, we would learn about it, boy, this is nice, and they would go. It would change the way we operate here in Carlynton and really bring us up to par to do what we need to do and how we're looking at student performance and data. I'm excited to be able to work with them. I believe once the faculty and the administrators see some of the things they can do, I'm hoping we can get them and begin working with them before the end of this month. I've had some experience working with them before in my prior district, and it was probably one of the better moves we made in my former district. And I believe they are even more stronger now because they can offer more to districts such as curriculum mapping and Keystone test data bank systems that they didn't have then. So I think it's a good fit looking at how our students have performed, where we want them to perform, and the outside pressures that we have to constantly monitor and be on top of students. So we're doing the job we need to do. They're going to help us do a better job for our students here in the community.
Thank you. Any-
Could I just
Yes.
follow up on that and ask, could you break down the cost, the pricing?
Well, they got the pricing in some individual units with the program. I believe for professional development, that the total cost would be $35,000. It'd be spread out, but they're in different modules, and we can negotiate with them with some of the modules. For the software itself, I believe it's $16,800 per year for 3 years.
Okay.
So it's spread out.
So it's 35,000 for the professional development modules and 16,800 for the software?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
16,800 per year for 3 years.
With all of this that's being done for the staff and ultimately it'll trickle down to our students, is there an element of remediation incorporated into this program on what we're going to do for our children?
Well,
If they
what
should fail.
what the program's going to do. So in the beginning of the year, you give the students diagnostic tests, and that establishes where they're strong in certain content areas. So which anchor are they struggling with? And we already do this K through 12, whether it's DIBELS down to lower units. People create their own diagnostic tests at the upper grade levels. So you know the starting point for all the kids. Then as you develop benchmark tests to monitor their progress through the year, we use the foresight, which is very good. It's a good predictor of how the kids are going to perform. So they can take the data, the individual anchors that each of the students performed on, and they can see, boy, Gary Pfeiffer really struggled on algebraic equations, and here, if he continues at this rate, the data is looking like he's not going to score well in the PSSA with it, or whatever the Keystone item bank is. So then the building principals can work with the faculty and take this data and then design assessments to test the kids on, design instructional practices. You can set them up, so you'll be able to identify the kids, who's close, who needs additional help, how are we going to provide an intervention, and you're going to be able to do it in a more timely fashion. So that's really the benefit. It's getting the data to the teachers quicker, so you can identify who needs help, who do we think that we can get up to that level to make AYP so they're proficient and advanced. So that's where I think it's going to be boon to us, because it'll cut down the turnaround time from when you're giving a test to when you're getting the data to how are you going to focus your instruction and tutoring on some of those students.
Well then, does that mean every single child should have his own IEP?
I wouldn't call it an IEP, but I think eventually you'll get to the point where you'll have individual action plans for students who are struggling, and you'll be able to work with the kids. Because as you know in the PSSAs, the special needs students take the PSSAs or a version of it just like everybody else. So again, it gives you the tools you need to meet the needs of the student. And it's in such a way that you're not just throwing data at kids or at teachers that it becomes so much they become overwhelmed. And the on-hand schools, staff comes in and works with people individually, and they're very flexible and good at working in districts to help them set the goals and meet the goals they need.
Then there's going to have to be some modification to curriculum.
Well, that's one of the things we're looking at doing with it, because we need to take a look at working on curriculum, in my view, particularly with math and English, because those will be the two that AYP is based on. So those will be the two areas, K through 12, that we need to work on. I don't think we could do all the curriculum all at once, but I think you have to break it down.
That has to happen anyway because of the Common Core assessments that have come down. Pennsylvania is part of the consortium of, I think, 47 states at this point, where we've more of a more nationalized standard. So what is being taught in math in Iowa is the same thing that's being taught in math here. And so the curriculum has been going through this process over the past few years of changing. And as the Keystone follows those, is supposed to follow those Common Core standards. And so we've changed our curriculum, and now the literature came out, the Algebra 1 came out, biology came out. And so we've had to change for that. And social studies is coming up, and chemistry, and then a few others are coming up. And so the curriculum is going to have to change anyway. And so it wouldn't be because hands-on came in that we have, and now we know more information that we have to change. We have to change anyway. And potentially, it sounds like On Hands could help ease that transition.
If I could just interject with that, for this year, and they covered this in our webinar we watched, for the PSSAs, which are still being given 3 through 8, they're still based on the current Pennsylvania standards and anchors.
Right, which
The
is not-
Keystones are based on the new Pennsylvania Common Core for this year. Next year, everything's going to switch over to the Pennsylvania Common Core. So as we get these these data tools in with the curriculum mapping that's a part of it, and we look to work on math and English curriculum revision, then when we switch over to the PA Common Core, we'll be able to continue in that line. We'll do science and social studies and down the road. Right now, as Director Chanel indicated, there's the Keystones in Algebra 1, biology, and English literature. The 2 that they're projecting on adding is going to be English composition and a civics, so that eventually there would be 5. The initial proposal was that there would be 10, and the students would have to take 6. But the way the compromise has come down now is eventually there will be 5. And civics and English composition will be the next. Now with the PSSA, because they're also revising that, the PSSA as we know it in reading will become PSSA in English language arts. And in the English language arts, there's going to be a writing component. So the PSSA writing is going to be faded out, and the PSSA test itself is going to include a writing component. And that's going to be 3 through 8. So you're going to have to look at adding more writing in kindergarten 1 and 2 to help prepare those kids with the skills for 3. So it really becomes an articulated program, which if we look at our end product, and it's the graduate, and what the graduate's ready to do, and how does every program, every grade level complement each other to prepare that graduate, that's really, I think, the direction we need to go. And I think that'll cut down on rivalries that exist with the PSSA. Well, we made it, but you didn't. There must be something wrong with you, which I don't think that's right. And I think revising the curriculum and giving people the opportunity K through 12 to work, we'll be in good shape.
Dr.
Because Mr. Mickley knows I'm not the best at technology. But, so as I understand what you're saying, this would enable us to identify kids and where they need extra help before they take the PSSA, while we still have time to target that learning, rather than waiting until after they take the PSSAs and finding out where they have where there's weaknesses.
Yes, and their curriculum mapping tool will help us with our curriculum revisions. So some of the goals that you have identified and the faculty and community members have identified, this will be a tool that'll help us be able to meet those goals.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on hands?
Whenever we sign on to do this, after 1 year of having this on art in Carlynton, can we revisit it to find out if it has really and truly been worth the money that we have directed towards this project, and see if it does indeed have merit?
Oh, absolutely. And I would say the people that work at On Hand Schools are more than willing to speak with you, and they're going to be coming to talk with the faculty about how exactly they want our feedback on how we feel they're doing and how they're helping our kids.
I expect results.
That's right.
From this commitment.
But I mean, just in terms of setting expectations, I think anytime you make a change and try to implement improvements, there's not always a quick turnaround to see that improvement. So I think our expectation that we will see improvement, but I don't think we should have the expectation that it's going to be superstar stellar improvement, because the realities of the way things work out is that sometimes it's either you've stayed the same, the hope is you stay the same and maybe improve, but not drop down. So a year, and we're going to be working this year to make a big change. I don't think realistically we should expect our buildings to have this stellar turnaround in a year when it's a new system, a new way of thinking, sort of a new.
It's probably going to take a year for people to be able to use the software and get into that, know it well enough.
Right, and then, but I think if we have the expectation that in a year, these teachers are everyone's going to learn how to use the system, everyone's going to learn how to interpolate the data in such a way that it's going to reap benefit for students just like that within a year. I think that's a little unrealistic in terms of once you get the information, then you have to develop a plan for the child and then implement that plan, and you have to work to see if that plan is working and what elements of that plan works and what elements of the plan doesn't work. So I think if we come in with the expectation that if there is no market improvement at the end of the year, it's an indictment against the system, I think that's a dangerous way to look at it.
I think there are other metrics that can be used other than just scores to see
Right,
if it's
right.
paying off. I mean, we can look and say, is this working out? Is it doing what we expect it to do? We would expect that 1 year, one set of results, and after 2 years and 3 years, as you
I
correctly
would
point
say
out.
it
But I think
very
Sandra's
simply.
right. Let's just
If I could just word
this-
it this way, it should be a progress report.
Absolutely.
That's right.
I think that's
Simply,
what everybody's
we want to
looking
see the
for.
progress
Is that
that
fair?
we're making.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Anything else on hands? Mrs. Hudson, would you tell us about Gable Foundation grant?
Sure,
So we know
we,
an
Ms.
hour
Piper and I we turned in our, the final report from this past year. Last year, through the Grable Foundation, we were able to hold an after-school program at the Carnegie Towers, and it held for an hour and a half, and 3 teachers were there, and they had awesome attendance. They averaged about 25 to 30 kids every night, and it was really nice because they got to see there were kids preschool to high school there. We were able to take data specifically on kids that were at Carnegie, because I was able to we were able to compare double scores and see their gains and so on. But there's a lot of great teachers that do a lot of it's a lot of community outreach. I think parents feel really safe going there, talking, and it's a comfortable environment for them to go and ask questions and to build a strong rapport. So one of the nice things that we were able to do is we were able to kind of watch our spending and able to start it a little bit sooner this year because we had extra money from the initial the $10,000 were awarded. So we're hoping to start it in this September rather than November, and they actually did it all throughout the summer as well. So the program continued throughout the summer until the end of July, so we took August off, and then they will start up again in the middle of September. So we're asking for the same amount of money to pay for the salaries of the teachers, as well as materials. I know Mr. Mickley did a lot to get some technology up there, so a lot of really good things, so hopefully we can continue it. But I think most important, the community outreach and even getting younger kids there and older kids, it's been a really positive environment, so that's something that we hope to continue.
When do we know for sure?
I don't know, that's a good question. But I'm not quite sure how that all works. I knew that he applied for it just based upon what Mr. Berry did last year, and I think Dr. Panza did it, that they kind of took over it. My understanding of when I'm trying to do the files for it. They applied for it late September, and they knew like November 5th it started. So they knew within the month. But I've been in contact with them, so they know it's coming. They knew about our request for it. So I'm not 110% sure when we'll know, but I'm hopefully sooner than later.
So the entire program is funded through the Grable Foundation.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I think that's incredible that we have 25 or more students a day that are able to get academic help after school with homework or whatever that they wouldn't be getting otherwise. So thank you for continuing.
It's a really great thing. I got started and glad to be part of it now.
Any other questions for Mrs. Hudson or any other discussion on the items listed under finance?
Number 3.
Change orders for the Carnegie Elementary front area
Yeah, I just,
wall.
it's
Wait.
more, honestly, I feel like, we gotta do what we gotta do to get this done in time for school to start. So it's not a huge amount of money, but I'm curious about the, the excavated stockpile material. It was originally gonna be used how to sort of fill back in or something like that?
The concern was, I believe initially the plan was when they excavated, they would be able to use that as part of the fill for the retaining wall. However, the more material they were digging out, found it was too much clay, and they felt that it wasn't strong enough to hold the wall up. And that necessitated the need to bring in the slag and something more solid.
Right, so this was done a while ago, this excavation.
It was done just this summer.
The excavation was done before school was out.
That's what I thought, so
Yeah.
it seems to me like, when you're digging it out, you're like, well, this isn't gonna work.
Oh, it was two different companies. I
Okay,
had asked
all right,
Gary about
okay.
that as
That's what I
well. It was
wondered.
one company that excavated, another one came in once we released the bids. They came in, built the wall based on the design that we had submitted, and it was another company that actually was replacing. And you don't want to put clay behind
No.
that wall because you don't have good drainage.
Right.
So that's one thing we wanted to make sure of. So that's where the disconnect sort of was.
I got you.
That was my same thought.
I just,
It's been sitting there for 4 or 5 months. Why didn't we know this in advance?
that's what I, okay, thanks.
Anything else on any of the items? If not, we will vote on those 4 items. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. Under personnel, we had discussed in executive session possibly not including item number 7. We were informed as we came up here that in fact the position had been posted, so concerns that we had don't seem to exist. So I'm going to include that in the listing of 7 items and under personnel for our approval if there's no objection. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve additional unpaid volunteers to the 2012-13 athletic supplemental list as presented here. Number 2, the affiliation agreement between the district and Robert Morris University to ensure the partnership of field placement, student teaching experience, and internships within the school district. Number 3, David Keene as an intern in the technology department through Pittsburgh Technology Institute from August 6th through the completion of 240 hours. Number 4, the resignation of varsity head girls basketball coach Richard Griffin, effective immediately. Number 5, the additions to the 12-13 athletic supplemental list as listed. Number 6, the following additions to the 12-13 curriculum supplemental list as listed and presented to you. And number 7, award the position of maintenance man to Robert Prevost, effective August 2nd, 2012, due to the resignation of Dale Woodall. This appointment is under the terms and conditions of the custodial maintenance bargaining unit agreement. Is there a motion for those 2nd items?
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Please identify the item you wish to discuss by its number. Dr. Wilson?
Number 3, I was just, maybe this was explained.
This is the intern for the technology
Right,
department.
what, is he going to be a tech that he's going to be helping install equipment? Or is he going to be like a coach where he's helping people learn to use equipment?
Probably both.
Oh, so you can use them both ways?
Right. He graduated from PTI already, and this is just fulfilling the graduation requirement.
Okay.
So he'll probably be working more with the equipment than doing any sort of training, but he will be able to assist teachers.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion?
Did we find out whether this is paid or unpaid position?
Unpaid.
Unpaid, okay.
Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Item 1, I realize that it's a volunteer position, and I don't mean to be, critical, but the assistant football coach, he didn't even bother to sign his application, so is there a way we can get him to fill this out before he actually, takes the field and does that sort of thing? Really, it's like, I look at the 2, and one for the cheerleading, and she filled in all this stuff, and signed it, very diligent, and he just I can't read that.
If I could suggest that maybe we ask our superintendent to direct to all coaches to be a little bit more diligent on seeing that the materials that they present for our approval are completed. The only thing,
Probably knows this guy.
I think he does. I would just suggest though that if we wait till our next meeting.
No, I understand.
I think we need to vote on it today.
Right.
I think you make a good point. So maybe this is our coaches
It's a
know that
life lesson for
we
him.
do look at the application.
That's right, that's right.
Yes.
Do they have to be cleared with all their background checks?
Yes.
Yes.
And let's confirm that all the checks, all the clearances are in. I mean, I think this
They have.
board, I will state, I think it's fair to say that this board has an expectation that anybody presented to us for approval will have all clearances and
Absolutely.
all the paperwork in. So,
And I would add that the law specifically requires
Yes.
such before anybody can start.
good question.
Even though they
Sorry.
are volunteers.
Even though they're volunteers.
Especially if they're
The
volunteers.
PTA.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, one thing that could help is on this form, where it says recommended by, and then it has the different acts and the forms that they can all be checked off, and this can be presented to us so that there's no question. In addition to the signature.
I agree.
Good point, good point. Further discussion on any of the 7 items? If there is none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. With that, we'll move on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business the director would like to take up at this point in time?
I just got a question regarding the roof at Carlynton Elementary and the issue of the building permit or construction permit. Has there been any, I know you did what you had to do to get it done, but have we found out whether the architectural firm is?
Before you do that, Mr. Pfeiffer, could you explain for our audience that to which Mr. Apple is referring?
As many of you know, we've approved the replacement of the roof at Carlynton Elementary School. We had a question about a permit that was issued that was required by the Carlynton Borough for some ballpark around $3,000. However, as a percentage of the project, it comes out to around 2% of the project. If we look at permits that require 2% of a building project, as the cost of the overall project goes up, and we're looking at a 100-year-old school that is very dear to the community and dear to this board, as is Carnegie. And the idea would be that we eventually do extensive renovations to Carnegie and Craft, which could exceed figures into the millions at some point. 2% becomes a bigger figure than $3,000. We pay the permit because we're getting close to the start of school and we want to work with Carlynton Borough and preserve the school. But, we would like to have discussions with them about the permit and get together with a contingent from our district to talk with them, because, we're putting a lot of money and effort in preserving the building as a viable operating school, not just for the Carlynton district, but also for the borough. And we like to work and reach out to them about the fee and see if we can work together so that the 2% fee would not become prohibitive for us to undertake a project. So that's sort of where we're at.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I've had, Mr. Pfeiffer and I've had some discussions about this. I've actually had some discussions with some of the representatives, the elected representatives of Carlynton. I believe that they are appreciative of the point Mr. Pfeiffer's making. Certainly, we had someone present different options in terms of air conditioning and redoing the HVAC, all the HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical work. The cost of like maybe $5 million in the building. That's a $100,000 permit fee. That's, as we see it, not reasonable. I believe that the folks that I'd spoken to there appreciate our point. They do contract out the service. I think some things need to be worked out. I'm optimistic that both boroughs are going to be very supportive of any kind of investment we make in those buildings, and will work with us to get there. But clearly, there's some work that needs to be done, and I no doubt Mr. Pfeiffer will take good care of this district in getting it done.
No, I appreciate you doing what needed to be done.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you.
Other items, is that what you needed? Okay. Unfinished business, other items?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I guess mention the facilities use policy. I understand that the meeting that I missed, there was some discussion of that with the Aqua Club. And so, in the spirit of getting the conversation going, I'm bringing it up again, and making the case, one, that there are some revisions that need to happen with the current policy. And I guess two, that's more long term, and I guess two, I guess we should, I would like to have some discussion to how the board feels about what we can do for those of you who were at that meeting, knowing what the concerns were of the Aqua Club, do we have any ideas as a board for short term, if there is a short term plan for helping the Aqua Club and with the issues that they presented at that meeting?
And I would suggest, I don't know that we touched on this in executive session. Ray and I talked briefly, and I'll certainly make the suggestion that we ask our superintendent to meet with the club and just work something out in terms of short term, how we're going to handle this and manage this. There is a longer term, a greater overarching issue here in terms of the policy. Is this something that we as a board want to have in place? These are rules that we want to operate under, and that's something we need to invest some time and move forward on. Absolutely. But I would suggest, just given the urgency of the matter, that we allow our superintendent to work with them to get to a place that's fair and equitable for all sides, and not to then say we're done with the facilities policy, but to allow us to provide a more strategic focus on the policy as a whole and its longer reaching implications.
I would like to see him do that too, so that they can get going.
Yes.
But I also don't want to penalize any of the other community sports. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they all should have.
Fair and equitable.
Yes, fair and equitable. So into that vein, so I'm not challenging that suggestion. I think that's a great plan. What do we have to do, since I'm one who would like to see this addressed? What is the appropriate procedure? What do we have to do to get this moved forward? Do we need to have a committee? Should individuals bring revise their recommendation and we then dialogue off of that and come up? What do we do?
Dr. Pfeiffer recommended that he's going to research.
Mr. President.
I'm sorry.
In a couple of years we'll be there.
Listen, I did that to Mr. Brown many
Brown,
times,
yes.
so you have to expect that. I get into this doctor mode. But Mr. Pfeiffer had suggested that he review or at least research several policies that we can more or less use as a starting point to pick and choose and give us a little bit of direction on what will work for our district. So if we can allow him to do that, feed that forward to us, review them, come back with ideas, and I think it's a good topic for discussion.
I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure we didn't somehow lose it as we get into the.
No.
So
No,
that's
that was,
fine.
we had that discussion.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
missed that.
That's okay.
But thank you. So that's fine.
So just so everyone is clear, so the expectation for the next meeting is that this board will have some information from other districts and
I was hoping prior to the next meeting.
Yeah.
well, by the next meeting.
We would like to
Prior, would like to have some time
A
to
discussion.
review it so that we can have a formidable discussion.
Right. I think.
Let's have an initial discussion at the next meeting. Is that what you're suggesting?
My wording is
Yeah.
that.
And I would suggest not only the information provided by Mr. Pfeiffer, but to the extent that directors have their own thoughts and just thinking out of the box or very specific suggestions, we might share it amongst ourselves. So the meeting we do have on the 23rd will be one where we're all up to speed and informed and can get to the right place. I think this board, while maybe having some different opinions on certain aspects of the facilities policy, I think we all want to get to the right place. And we just need to communicate well with each other. And that we'll
I
get there.
think that Director Shell's suggestion, as far as streamlining this so it's easily discernible as far as where everything falls within the different groups, I think if we can make that as simple as possible, that would be the way to go.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, so because I know that, other people have asked me, and not come to the board, but asked me as a board member, what are you doing about it? So just so we put out there, the expectation for next meeting is that the board will have preliminary discussions, but no one should have the expectation that we're going to have a brand new policy good to go at the end of next meeting. If it happens, wonderful.
If we gave this duty to Mr. Pfeiffer, I'm sure that he could do that in our absence, but there's 9 others that we have to satisfy. So
Right.
There's going to be a lot of discussion.
Right, so I just want to be clear.
It's
with
not
you.
going to happen overnight, so
Right.
just let them know that.
Right, so just the expectation.
Or at the next meeting.
And, work it out at The expectation should not be that, it should change.
But let them know, you know, we're putting a lot of consideration and effort into it so that the final product's going to be one that's fair and equitable and meets the needs of the community. So we're not going to rush through it and put something hodgepodge together.
And on a procedural, from a procedural standpoint, I'll remind the board too that under our policy, any changes to policy requires a 30-day reading period. So any policy that's ultimately developed would be recognized as a first reading by this board that would start the 30-day period. After the 30 days have passed, we could then vote to put it in as our policy. So technicality, but just to remind everybody. Anything else in that, Myra, you wanted to add? Are we good? Anything else under unfinished business from anybody? There being none, any new business anyone would like to bring up at this point in time? There being no new business, we'll open up to open forum and invite anyone from the audience or any board member to bring up anything they'd like to bring up to the board at this point in time. Mr. Cozy, would you please?
The first one's real small. In personnel under number 5, I think it's just an oversight. But you hired somebody as the varsity boys soccer coach. Did you mean assistant on that? Okay. And then when Coach Daggle to be replaced.
Yes.
No, I read that as junior high head coach.
So the second one.
The one above that that you're
First
saying. Varsity's, varsity.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
And that should be varsity boys assistant soccer coach. All right. Is there anything else you want to?
Yes, that's not. I actually want to talk about was the on-hand school. You guys had a large discussion about the purchase of that and wanting to see results. That makes perfect sense. You spend a lot of money on something. You want to know that you are going to get something back for paying for it. But I'm a little, when you guys are talking about, well, we want to see progress or some level of expectation that you want to see come out of whatever's going to happen this year, whether that's either through the curriculum or through the hands-on schools management program. What are those sort of expectations or progress you want to see? Let me kind of clarify a little bit. It's all tied into whatever the testing is at the end of the year, I assume. And we did very well last year on everything except that 11th grade number. We don't have a chance to redeem that 11th grade number because there isn't a PSSA in 11th grade anymore. Instead, those 11th graders are going to be taking tests that they're not even in classes. What I mean is they're going to take a biology test at the end of the year and they're in a chemistry class. They're going to take an algebra test at the end of the year and they're in a geometry class. So I think you ought to know that going in. You probably do.
We do.
So that at the end of the year, your purchase of this, and you're looking at those schools, wherever they are, they're not really comparable to what's happened in the past, at least at the high school level.
At some levels of the high school, you're absolutely correct. But at levels of the elementary school, obviously, you can see that. So I think that whenever we say that, that's very generalized. But at the same time, we have to be realistic because things have changed. So that baseline that you're speaking of, that is something that will build over the years. Right. And what we were talking about here was initially a 3-year program.
Okay.
With the on-hands. So there are areas that will see benefits, but as you're stating, you're absolutely correct. We're not going to see 100% of the benefit because of the changes.
Right. This is going to take time. Like curriculum writing is going to take a good amount of time. Yeah.
Well, that's right. And if I could add in, because again, the PSSA is still going to be here next year, 3 through 8, and I believe the proficiency advanced numbers are 91 for reading and 89 for math. One of the things that I'm going to be looking at and looking to my building principals to do is when they're doing professional development and when they're working with teachers is that people are able to use the data, develop strategies and plans. How are we doing using the foresight 3 through 8? How are you getting the benchmark test back from that? It's going to enable teachers to better design benchmark tests with the Keystone data program that they're developing, a test item bank. Not as much of an impact for this year because coming up in December, we're going to be scrambling at the high school. But again, as they expand that Keystone Item Bank, people are going to be able to develop better benchmark assessments for that. The curriculum mapping component. As I said, I believe there's the items that we've identified as building needs based on the curriculum, based on student performance. This can help us with as we look to see improvement. And you're going to be able to use that data. These are the kids that are subgroup A. These are the kids that are subgroup B. How are they performing in my class? How can I take this information and work directly on my team with the special needs teacher? How can I work with my title teacher? How does this better align what we're doing with the RTII program with the kids? That's where in the first year, as people become familiar with it, and we're going to the professional development is going to be tied around that and the new teacher evaluation model that PD approved based on Charlotte Danielson's teacher framework. So I think, Mike, these are the things that when the board talks about how we're going to use it, that it becomes part of the daily way we operate as a Carlynton school district and not a throwaway. Well, we sat through it because we had to and now I'm done with it. It has to be something that people recognize the value of and say, this is going to help you. This is going to help the building principals, and this, most importantly, is going to help the students, it's going to help the families, to help those kids get ahead.
I mean, performance on the Keystone and on the PSSA is necessary evil, and as Mr. Piper said, it is tied to things now, like teacher and principal evaluations.
Right.
So this on-hands software package is a tool that we can use to sort of play the game, according to the rules that are given to us. And so for me, in terms of what is progress, I'm not looking for big changes within the first year because that's a transition year.
I would think that the first year almost is your baseline.
Right, so so I'm not, for me personally, I'm not looking for any change in that first year because it's a transition year. And even in the second year, I'm not looking for big things either because that's really where you're tweaking, And so maybe the third year is where I'm personally looking for something. But it is all about trying to manage those numbers because these are the requirements set forth from the federal government and managed by the state with their requirements as well. And so this is to help us manage all of that. I mean, that's just, it is what it is, And we're hoping for benefit to the students because ultimately that's why everybody's here.
And we are in a very odd transition period. Based on that webinar, these students in 11th grade are going to take these Keystone tests. It does no bearing on them. They are not required to pass these in order to graduate, whereas in past years they had to pass that PSSA test in order to graduate. So there was a personal stake in taking a test. That doesn't exist for the next 3 years. It's our upcoming 8th graders are the first class that will have that requirement. So for the next 3 years, we have kids taking the tests where it isn't personal, we're hoping to
But that new graduation requirement still isn't approved by the federal government. So, I mean, it's still...
I'm just going by what I heard in the
Right,
webinar.
right, I know, but that's so everybody understands what the reality is. We are changing everything and operating under basically a non-reality with the hopes that it will become reality. And, God forbid that it doesn't become reality because we just changed everything. Right? But the on-hands tool, the on-hand software will be a tool that will help us manage all of that. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
But for me personally, in terms of improvement, we have to, because we didn't apply for a waiver, Pennsylvania didn't apply for a waiver, we have to be 100% proficient in 2014.
Correct.
As much as I love our students, I don't think that's going to happen, not from a lack of faith, but just, at my husband's job, not everyone's 100% proficient. I mean, there's just individual variation, and should we expect 94? Maybe we shoot for 94. But to say that everybody has to be this, and then they keep changing what this means, and that's basically what the problem is. They want us to be proficient, but they keep changing what proficient is.
I think that's it right there. And I
Right.
think that's the frustration I've developed. That's what I'm hearing here is a frustration that we're changing again, and it's just you use the word odd how they're approaching, and I think that's a good word to describe it as well.
But it's trying to be a little cunning.
These are the rules that we're playing by, and we're gonna play by them.
I'm just sort of maybe expressing my opinion or my feelings on it as I'm sort of on the front lines. I'm the one that has to stand in front of those kids and sell this whole system to them to motivate them to do as well as they possibly can on the test. And it's quite a challenge given the system that you guys are discussing now.
Right, and they're used to their testing schedule being a certain way,
Right.
and that is completely out the window. And quite honestly, I'm not really sure how you all manage the scheduling of all of that, because I mean, it's August now, and we found out in July 23rd. I honestly do not know. And so people in the public and parents really need to pay attention to this and understand what this is. And how the teachers deal with it, how the students deal with it, now because they've grown up essentially with the PSSA, and this is what it is, and March, April, this is where we test. And no, you're testing over here and over here and over here and over here. And
you're being tested in material that you're not currently in classes for.
Right, so please remember that.
That's a
This
quite a
seems to me
challenge.
to just be a wild experiment.
Right.
This is truly a wild experimental time to see how this whole Keystone system works out. And that's why they're not holding the students accountable at this point, because they're not sure.
And I will remain positive, and I will send the message to the kids as best I can, but it is some weird times, so.
Well, and I think too, you have to give a little extra TLC for 8th graders this year, because they're required to take the Keystone and those 8th grade kids in taking Algebra 1 and the PSSA. They're going to spend a lot of time testing.
This brings up something that I did want to talk about, I forgot. In terms of what the state is doing and how it is doing it, I don't know if they have it archived. If anybody has a chance to see that webinar, I think you should see the webinar, or hear the webinar, and there's mine. Because it is, this is my only personal opinion, I find it pretty outrageous, and I think at some point, districts have got to start pushing back somehow, because you can't keep changing the diameter of your flaming hoop and say you have to jump it clean, now it's over here, now it's over here, and why aren't you jumping through it? You should be jumping through it. Why aren't you? And somehow the fault is the teacher, somehow the fault is the district, somehow the fault is the student. When they keep changing the state and the federal government keep changing the rules, keep changing the expectations, they keep changing the process. At some point, I think that this board should consider some sort of resolution, some sort of, maybe contact with the CSBA, if the board feels that way. Because I personally am very angry that the state of public education, and not only the state, but in this country, has come to this. And it's basically largely experiments, and we're losing a generation of students in this wild experiment of No Child Left Behind, which still hasn't been reauthorized. And we're still operating under these rules, and who knows? Nobody at the federal level wants to deal with it, so here we are. And the only ones that are suffering for it are the students, which ultimately is the nation. So I
All the students in the educational system, so.
right, exactly. So ultimately the nation suffers.
I mean, that's
for it.
everyone inclusive. It's a shame.
So even if it's a small thing, I don't know if a resolution is the way to go. If this board thinks about it and is so inclined, I think that for me personally, I feel like we need to do something or say something, just to make the statement that, please stop blaming the teachers, please stop blaming the districts. Understand that the job is difficult enough without always having to figure out exactly what the job is, because you keep changing the rules.
Well, and my added on top of that frustration is, while they keep changing the rules and all of that stuff, what you said, which is accurate, they're also expecting more and giving us less. And that just, that's my opinion, that's where I would push back, that you can't do that. That's totally unrealistic.
And there are whispers in Washington about reducing the Race to the Top money that everybody went crazy for and revamped things for. And if that funding is cut, now it hasn't been cut, but there's talk about, then maybe we should cut that. Where does that leave the states that ended up getting Race to the Top grants? And how do you fund that and all the changes? And sure, the stipulation was, well, you're supposed to be able to sustain it, but realistically, who can? So, just something for us to consider as a board, if we're so inclined. My personal outrage is
I'll tell you what my suggestion is, if I could interrupt you. I want to send you to the PSPA Mechanicsburg to have a top-level meeting
Tom Genzel.
with Tom Genzel. I'm serious. I'm not kidding. I think that you should be an advocate versus sending a letter. I think a personal message is a much better delivery.
And Tom Gensel's definitely the one to talk to.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
A
it.
piece of paper doesn't mean
No.
anything.
Cut it.
Right.
It doesn't cut it.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Good idea.
Before we move on, before I ask if there's anything else under open forum, I will entertain a motion to reconsider the motion to approve additions to the 2012-2013 athletic supplemental list as recommended. Is there a motion to reconsider that motion?
So moved.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second to reconsider. You recall, Mr. Cozy pointed out that the word assistant was inadvertently left out. It should read boys soccer assistant, varsity boys assistant soccer coach. So I would now entertain a motion to amend.
Well, we have to vote on the motion to rescind.
Okay, all
All
right.
in favor?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun.
I'm keeping score.
So we've got a motion to all right, we're going to vote on the motion to reconsider. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion passes. Thank you. So now I will entertain a motion to amend the reconsidered motion to include the word assistant. Is there such a motion?
So,
Has been moved. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. The motion has been amended. Now we will vote on the new motion as amended. All those, is there any discussion? There being none, we will vote. All those in favor say
We
aye.
don't have a motion? No, we do it. We have an amended motion, I apologize.
That's right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. The motion passes. So we have amended. We include the word assistant. Thank you very much, Mr. Cozy. Anything else under open forum? Yes.
Yes, cafeteria. I understand it's being renovated. So
Not
can you give us
completely,
an
but
update?
yes. Mr. Pfeiffer, would you update where we stand with the renovations in the cafeteria?
Well, they're looking at renovations to open up the cafeteria serving lines a little bit more. They're working on the floors so that it'd be a little more open. We could get the kids through quicker and hopefully be able to have an area where we're going to have a salad and a soup area that's open to the kids as well. And that's would help with moving the kids through, opening it up, and just redesigning the lines themselves.
A lot of work's been, most of the work actually has been done. Structural work's been done already. We were just there earlier today. It looks like they need to bring in, at this point, do a little work on the floor, and then bring in the serving areas, stations, or whatnot. So everything is on track for the opening of school.
Yes, that's correct.
Understanding. So it's going to look pretty nice. It's going to function very well. And of course, all of this was paid for out of the budget we had for our food service. This is not coming out of the general fund budget. So thank you. Anything else? If there's nothing else from the audience or the board, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.